Hey everybody, I'm David Schloss, editor of Imaging Resource, and I'm here in Australia. Sorry about that. Hey everybody, I'm David Schloss, the editor of Imaging Resource, and I'm out here in Australia where I've spent several weeks with the Sigma 200mm f2.0 DG OSS Sports lens, and this is a fantastic lens, and I want to give you my first thoughts about it. Now, I'll have a full review of it when I've gotten back home and had a chance to really evaluate the images and get my thoughts together, but I wanted to talk about this lens. So spoiler alert, this is a phenomenal lens. When Sigma released the 300 to 600mm f4 recently, I said that that was a lens that Sony should have made, and this is also a lens that Sony should have made. What do I mean by that? It is durably built, it is fast, it is functional, it makes beautiful images. The fixed focal length and wide apertures mean that those kind of photographers can get the best images even in low light, or best images in bright light with really, really nice bokeh or depth of field. Now, I think that this lens, just as a spoiler alert, is a must-buy. Sony has recently released a 50 to 150mm f2, which is the one thing I think might be a competition to this lens. Images from this lens are simply spectacular. I've been using them all over Australia. I photographed wildlife, I photographed in a botanical garden, I even ran into a protest in the middle of Sydney, and you can see from these images that this lens is so tack sharp. It is built like a tank, and like the last Sigma lens, it has controls all over its body. Looking down so I don't miss any of this, the lens has an autofocus switch, it's got the limiters for the focal range, it has two modes of optical image stabilization, and two custom switches that you can use to program this button. The aperture is clickable or declickable, and there's a lock button on the other side, and if that was not enough, there are multiple buttons on the face of the lens that you can program to do anything from focus hold to whatever else you would like to do with this lens. Let me show it to you without the lens hood so you can get a real feel for the actual size of the lens. This is a very compact lens, especially for a f2.0. That wide aperture is really hard to do in this focal length. Another thing, this tripod foot is Arca Swiss compatible, which means you can drop it in any number of tripods and not need to have an adapter to connect the tripod to this lens. That is great. Like with Sony's own sports lenses, this lens focuses incredibly quickly. It is lightning fast. I've been shooting it on the A9 III and the A7R5, and both of those cameras, the subject recognition works fantastically. Autofocus is instantaneous. Before I wrap this up, let me just say the one reason that this might not be a must-have lens, and that's simply because Sony recently released the 50 to 150mm lens, which I also reviewed. It also has an f2 aperture and it's a zoom. Now, of course, 150mm and 200mm aren't the same, but when you're talking about 50mm and you're doing close-up photography, it actually is a little bit better to have a little bit shorter of a focal. So I use that lens in sports, I use that lens at protests in New York City, and in all of those cases, the ability to go from 50 to 150mm at f2 was fantastic. So if I was shooting something like an A1 Mark II or an A7R5, where I have that little bit of extra resolution in the camera, I might pick the 50 to 150mm over this lens simply for the versatility and because I'm getting the same aperture. And both of these lenses focus nearly identically. So now Sigma has a 300 to 600mm lens that just blows away Sony's 200 to 600mm lens. Sigma's got a 200mm lens. Now all Sigma really needs at this point is a 400mm lens, and they will have achieved the perfect lineup of sports lenses for Sony before Sony has done it themselves. Are you interested in this lens? Does the 200mm focal length make sense for you, or would you rather maybe give up a little bit in the aperture and get a more traditional zoom lens, or would you rather spend the money and get Sony's 50 to 150mm? And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, because I will use your questions when I'm making the next full review video of the 600mm lens. For Imaging Resource, I'm editor David Schloss, and until next time, go out and give it your best shot.